What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. It is what it is. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. It's getting a little chilly out there right now, in the city. Crime is what it is right now. We'll definitely talk about that and things of that magnitude. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. I really am. Blessings to all of you and your families. Birthday shout outs. To those that are celebrating birthdays around the sun. Also, too, we want to acknowledge anybody that has lost anybody. We send our prayers and our condolences to everybody. Hey, Los, how are you? Tonight we have a good show like always. We try to give you the best content, real talk. Um, of course, I got my co-host Kevin Branzetti in the building. Kevin, let me ask you how you are doing first and foremost. How you feeling, brother?
I'm feeling well. Good evening. Hello,
Good,
all.
good, good,
Hello,
good,
Frank.
Hi,
good.
Kevin. How are you?
Good.
So, yes, with that being said, um, everybody, you all know the rules. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to it, like it, share the button. If you're on Facebook, share it, please. Let everybody, know what you're watching. With that being said, we have a guest tonight that introduced to by one of the Real Talk co-host, Allison, and I was very glad she did that. And this gentleman and I have been conversing the past couple of days, just about life and things. And when we had our conversation, it was just real nice and detailed. And I told him that, I'd love to have you if he wanted to come on. So I will let him tell you about himself because he is the eighth wonder of the world, right? That's an inside joke. That's an inside joke, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a former law enforcement officer with us. He's the OG to Kevin and I. So without further ado, everybody, please give him a thumbs up, a good, welcome, real talk, welcome, Frank Ogard. Thank you, Frank, for being with us tonight. Yes.
Thank you for inviting me, Bill. This is an honor.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that Allison introduced us and suggested that I come on your program.
Absolutely.
I've never done this before, so you'll have to forgive me if.
No, we're going to guide you. Definitely, we're going to guide you. Frank, we want everybody to know a little bit about whom you are. So please give us a background in your law enforcement and just who you are, where you're from, and just things of that magnitude, please.
Well, that's going to take most of the program. I don't think you have that much time.
Well, just give us the law enforcement background, and how about that?
You don't want the military. You don't want the what else did I do? Private investigator, deputy director of public safety on Roosevelt Island. All of those things were incorporated into my limited time on the planet. But
give it to us, condense it. Tell us military branch, law enforcement director. Let us know. Let the world know your knowledge, your vast knowledge of stuff of life.
Well, yeah, indeed. As a young man, I was inducted, I think the word is, into the United States Army during the Vietnam crisis. And I did some service there on the island of Okinawa and spent some time in an artillery unit, which was the Hercules missile unit as a communications officer. But that's only 2 years out of the beginning of my military experience. And after I got out of the military, I went into law enforcement and did 22 years in law enforcement.
Okay.
And from law enforcement, pretty much had a lot of various experiences that may be a blessing and maybe not. But,
right.
Clearly I was doing several different things. I was in anti-crimes and narcotics and things like that, internal affairs at one point. So I did a lot of various things in law enforcement. And then after I left law enforcement, I went into I became the deputy director of public safety on Roosevelt Island for a short period of time before I moved into my own business and became a private investigator. And that's what I do now. I'm a private investigator.
In between riding your bike, right? Riding your motorcycle.
The beast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Frank, thank you. Welcome to the show. What's up, everybody? I see you, Lowe's, Stephanie, JC, what's going on? John Mills, what's going on? So thank you. First, thank you for your service. I have military in my family. I've had too. My uncle was. I'm always proud to say that he was one of the first Marines back then when he served his country, but he couldn't even come home and sit next to white people, and that was crazy about stuff like that. So, and I've had young cousins that served in the military too. So salute to all the military and exactly an informal law enforcement. Frank, can you give Kevin and I some insight on what it was like to do narcotics or work in law enforcement back in the time when you were in law enforcement? Hey, Allison. Allison just said hello. And also, so everybody too, one thing we will be talking about the George Floyd. Just give us a minute. I just want Frank to get his flowers right now. We will be talking about the Derek Chauvin case. We will be talking about the young Latin child that got the boy that got shot. Was that a justified shooting? We're going to talk about the female that just got shot yesterday. And we can also pick up on Dante Wright. Kevin and I, what we do, we show a lot of clips sometimes, and then we have open dialogue and discussion about certain things like that. So, but I just want Frank to finish telling us a little insight about what law enforcement was like in the 70s, in the 80s.
Clearly, without the technology of today, it was a totally different experience. The people who have dealt in law enforcement since I retired back in 1995 certainly have had a total, maybe, I'm not sure, I'm just guessing that they've had a totally different experience. However, law enforcement basically is historically an operation that operates for the purposes of keeping a society in check for an economic system. And one of the problems that I think is prevailing is the system of law enforcement rather than the officers that have to work inside of that system. So it's very difficult to blame individuals inside of a failed system, a system generally that was created for the purposes of monitoring individuals and supporting business. Anytime you have a problem with anything, follow the money, follow how the money is distributed, and how money affects any particular problem. And that's one of the things I think is not being addressed properly in the evaluation of the problems that we're having in law enforcement. And that goes from my time or from the very beginning into the time we're dealing with now. And one of the issues I think I spoke to you about substantially, and this would only be one issue, would be how police basically are utilized to patrol the automobile industry. And that's substantial in that you have an industry that makes billions and billions of dollars, and they advertise vehicles that can go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. The model is put on television that, it's speeding everywhere it goes, it's running real fast, and they leave the regulation of that industry to the police department. And I don't think that's fair to the public nor the police. You shouldn't be able to produce a product that creates such damage to the population. And then, the police then, because it's their responsibility, have to monitor a situation where there are over 38,000 deaths per year in the United States. I think that worldwide it's like 1 million deaths per year. So just that in itself says that they're manufacturing a problem that they expect law enforcement to deal with. And just to not stay too long on this topic, but I think it's substantial because when they talk about reorganizing law enforcement, this is one of the areas I think law enforcement should do its best to move away from because there's so much attached to it. The reality is that beyond the 35,000 deaths, then you have the 4.4 million seriously injured people per year in this country that have to go into medical facilities for the damages of the automobile. Now, significantly, maybe we can't, within a law enforcement perspective, put our fingers on the devastation of how law enforcement has to interact with the public relative to this industry. This is an industry that's making billions. And for money not to be funneled back into law enforcement as the agent of the automobile industry. So, it's a very big topic. And substantially, law enforcement, I watched a video 2 nights ago of an Arkansas car chase that lasted about 20 minutes. If you get a chance, I mean, it's unbelievable. So you have like 20 cars chasing a guy, following him down a parkway. Long story short, he exits the parkway into a public street. They're going excess of 120 miles an hour sometimes in this chase. Mm-hmm. For what could be so important that you would chase a vehicle at 120 miles an hour in a civilian population? Well, end of story. They do what they call a pit maneuver at 90 miles an hour, and the vehicle flips over. The police officer strikes the vehicle. It sends the officer into the air. He cuts down the telephone pole, and anybody. It appears that the 2 vehicles involved in the crash both were killed. Again, this is an automobile industry issue. I don't know why they were chasing him. But let me just finalize that in today's world, and I bring it up because you asked me how things have changed. In today's world, we no longer have to have automobile manufacturers selling cars that can break the law. That'll get law enforcement out of it. Tell the automobile company, if the speed limit GPS says it's 60 miles an hour, do not let that car violate the law. That takes a whole lot of work away from law enforcement. And it saves not only lives, it saves us insurance costs. I mean, the industry just has this huge grip on what we are and how we survive and what we believe. Because most of us support the freedom of being able to step on the gas and travel from 0 to 60. But that's my feeling.
Okay, and somebody I had to turn down their phone. I think Frank, if you have your phone, there's an echo. Somebody's I'm echoing through somebody's device. Okay, so with that being said, okay, now that's great. We know law enforcement, and you talked about how it's always been a financial situation. Even when Kevin and I were law enforcement, it was a big crack epidemic. Can you talk about what was it like back then to work with more? How was racism dealt with on the job? How was people of color treated around your presence? Because right now we're dealing with it. Tell them to wave. Tell them to wave, little Kev. And how the climate has changed right now. It's very diverse. But the bottom line is there's a lot of animosity with law enforcement and the people of the community. Like you said, going back to the trial, going back to other individuals and things of that magnitude. So give me, back in your day, like you said, there wasn't cameras where somebody could say the police did something, police brutality or things of that magnitude. Can you give me some insight on what it was like to honestly be a law enforcement officer where you did have a one-man foot patrol sometimes?
I certainly did, yes.
Yeah. So give us an insight about that, please. Yeah.
Have you heard of, and I'm sure you have, collars for dollars?
Absolutely.
Both of you
Absolutely.
have heard that. That's a racist setup to begin with, because basically what you have are the most aggressive police are the ones that utilize the department as a means to make, more money. So whereas they can, do the things that they need to do in their own personal lives. So what the department does financially is offer those individuals the ability to get more overtime by doing what? By arresting people. So when you allow this kind of operation, you basically taint what law enforcement is supposed to be about. So I don't know if that's changed or not, but it certainly has a dramatic impact on the victims, the community that is plagued with this infestation of aggressive law enforcement for the purposes of financial gain. And I'm not sure, have you had that experience?
Oh, absolutely. Kevin and I are from an era where it was called the terminology "collars for dollars" was still there, and when we worked under this monster of a man, Giuliani, he gave us zeros, and he gave us all the overtime we wanted at one point with Condor and things of that magnitude. But it was almost like they go out there and get your money. Kevin, you want to elaborate on that? I mean, you may not think of Giuliani as the monster as I called him, but he.
Well, I'm not going to get into that part of the conversation. That's to take us down a road. Look, collars for dollars definitely existed within the police department. Some of us used it as a goofing phrase, like, did I ever say that phrase? Yeah, 100% I did. Mm-hmm. Did I ever mean it in a way where I was only looking to make arrests so I could make, money, or I would do anything wrong to make money? Absolutely not. Did I ever see supervisors, push arrests that were terrible so they can make money off of it? 100% I did.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then with that being said, gentlemen, I want your take on this. That can change the climate of a community when an officer is out there looking to arrest somebody. Because I've always said this, and no disrespect to our law enforcement family. Shout out to all the law enforcement officers out there, the good ones, definitely doing their thing. Be careful, watch your six. That excuse me, that when you move away and you buy these houses that you really can't afford, and whatever your circumstances are, your wife is not working, you have kids, you have this high mortgage, and you have 2 cars or 3 cars and things of that magnitude, and you have a stay-at-home wife, and you pay you're the breadwinner, and you're driving 60 miles a day, and you have bills, you are arresting for yourself. People was like, "Oh, you're an active cop." Oh, look at my bills. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, that's another area. When I say follow the money, you follow the money everywhere it takes you. And I want to say and be clear that police officers are underpaid for what they do. The fact that you have to have a secondary job to pay your bills and provide for your family is there's a problem within that itself. So how do you pay a police officer more? Where do you get the budget to increase a police officer's salary? Well, you create a better working environment and a better police system, one. And number two, there are so many other, especially in the city of New York, there's so many other offers that you can put into a contract for law enforcement relative to, taxes can be reduced. Housing within the city limits can be found for, substantially less money within the group for, law enforcement people. Public transportation, bridges, tolls, all of these things can add to an officer's income and keep them from needing to have this constant, how do I pay my bills kind of attitude.
Yes.
Because that's part of the problem of racial disparity with law enforcement, because the biggest pay in law enforcement is arresting people of color.
Yeah.
People of color support the entire system, not in jobs. Most recently, I see more people of color in uniform. But the reality is the system of collecting people off the street, collecting people to funnel through this system of arrest, prosecution, incarceration. This is a business. And that business is destroying not only people of color, it's destroying this country. And it's not a police matter, it's a human matter. And if we get around to talking about this convict, this Derek Chauvin,
Yes.
who is an example of racism.
You can now refer to him as a murderer. He's officially a murderer.
No, I did.
You know, yeah.
He's a killer, a murderer. He's where he belonged. And I can't even understand how a murderer like him could have existed in law enforcement as long as he did. Who did not recognize this guy? His ability to put his knee on someone's neck and sit and look at a group of people begging. The guy on the ground, he can't beg so much. Please, please, I can't breathe. I can't. But the people are saying, officer, please, please, you're killing him. No. And he can sit there with the knee on the neck, look them in the face and tell them, you can't stop me. And that's the look on his face. He's so relaxed in his position of murder in public that he lost track of the reality that he was actually had his knee on this guy's neck.
And
That's
Frank,
how-
hold that. That's awesome. Hold that thought. That's an awesome thought. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. And we have our special guest today, Frank Ogard, with us. And he is dropping some science and knowledge with us. And we are about to segue into talk about the murderer. That, as like Kevin said, and like Frank said, that's what we're going to call him. But I have one question for the panel right now that was asked. And before we segue into the murderer, it was asked, what did you guys do when you saw officers making arrests for dollars? Now, I'll start off with my answer first. Is that there isn't any really thing you can do long as the arrest is valid. Back then, officers don't really question other officers. Well, I'm speaking from my experience. We didn't question another officer's arrest because it wasn't none of our business. Long as, from a man of color standpoint, unless the individual came in multiple times, if the arresting officer kept bringing somebody in and every time he was beat up or he needed bandages, then you're like, okay, what's going on? But the bottom line is to see somebody arrest, me personally, like I said, I have to talk for me. I'm under the assumption, unless I had something else that changed my thought process about that officer, that it was a valid arrest. As you get to know an officer, you kind of start gauging, is he just, like you said, making arrests for collars for dollars, or as we would call an arrest, we'd be like, that was a BS arrest. You know what I'm saying? Like, or you just arrested somebody to get out the cold, or you didn't like your post, your assignment. So the first person who's out there, you saw, you arrested.
The first black person. We're not saying you can't do this to white people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
This system only can be done against people of color.
Yes.
And everybody knows that.
Right.
So, and the fact that we accept that as a reality, be us whatever color we are, and that's a whole nother issue. But anybody who accepts that as, acceptable behavior, they're complicit.
Kevin, give me your insight give me your insight.
So collars for dollars. Look, when Bill and I worked in the 2-8, I can go out just about any day and make an arrest. There was somebody in the 2-8 selling crack, right? At one end of the precinct or the other. There were numerous spots within the command to go out and make a drug dealing arrest. Not very difficult, right? If Bill and I were working and we decided tonight one of us needed to get on, one of us was going to get on.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't take us long. We sit on a couple of rooftops, watch people, whatever we had to do, and it was going to get done.
Yes.
I have no issue with those. What I had the issue with was when I went to narcotics, and Bill can talk about this as well. It was a different atmosphere with certain bosses. I worked one day, and the sergeant hid in Mount Morris Park, watched 5 people pass a joint to each other, locked them all up so we can make the money on 5 people being arrested. Now, these guys were on their lunch break, working a legit construction job.
Yeah.
You know, they were fired after that.
Absolutely.
Right? They were put through the system. Give them a summons. I'm all for giving the guy, a ticket. You're smoking weed in the park, give you a ticket, have a nice day. You have no warrant, it's a handshake at the end and goodbye. But to get paid, you had to put people through the system. 100% frank, that was the way it went. Did that go over well with guys like me, Bill, and most detectives I work with? None of us went for that. Yeah. And that would turn into a tremendous fight between the boss and them. And I saw, Colin asked, what did you do about it? I took a sergeant's test to get the heck out of there, because I wasn't doing that. I had another incident where a sergeant stopped the guy and he made what I think was a bad stop to arrest somebody. I wrote it right on the arrest paperwork. As per Sergeant so-and-so, the subject did this. And, sergeants don't like that, right? They want the cops to write their name on everything.
Exactly.
Excuse my language, but FU was mine to hit the sergeant. I put it on there and I said, we had a face-to-face, like, spitting match, screaming at each other. Of the point he was like, I'm going to have you suspended. And I told him to go F himself and good luck with that, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have me suspended because you want me to falsify a report? Right. Challenge accepted, sir. Right? Like, did those things occur? Yeah.
So Kev, let me ask you a question. And I've always respected your integrity. Sometimes we can differ on certain things, but I can never question your integrity for doing right and wrong. Like, when you started doing things like that, how are you looked at among the other white officers or just officers?
The other detectives with me were on my side.
Okay. All right.
Team I work with, the guys I worked with, and they were a mixture. We had a pretty good, in narcotics, you can have a team that's all one race, and they existed. We were a pretty good mixture of, misfits, kind of, had some good laughs, but we were all on the same page. When it came to that part of it, the cops, detectives, we all stuck together, and we fought the sergeants on those.
Good.
What those usually turned out to be were sergeants in their last year of their career, and they wanted to pay their overtime and pay their pension on the backs of us. And I'm not getting indicted or fired
because
you can have a few hundred extra bucks a year. Yeah. Again, but I was at a point in my career where I was mature enough that I would fight back. Right? And eventually got me tossed out of narcotics, but that's a whole other story.
So I think I saw you around that. Hey, Frank, let me ask you a question. How did you deal with racism in the police department before we go into the Derek Chauvin case and other cases? How did you deal with racism in the police department when you were officer?
Yeah, it was difficult. What Kevin just said regarding I was a maverick in that certain things could not happen in front of me. Right. To the extent that, for instance, if we were doing a narcotic thing on the street, and I was predominantly with some other brothers in our unit, Manhattan Narcotic Enforcement, which was north, south, whatever. But an example is, you call for backup because you've got 2 under, and you have people coming in at the arrest location. So you call for backup. You call for the 85, which is, requesting assistance from your unit, not from patrol. So they show up, and these are guys you work with, and they immediately start beating people, grabbing people. And now you've got to leave your arrest alone and say, guys, that's not what I called you here for. And their answer to me was, well, the next time, don't call us.
Okay.
Now, that's substantial. because I still have to work with these people.
Yeah.
But that's just an example of when you step up to the plate and you stand for anything. I've gone to work on a midnight in uniform. There's a guy crying in the cell. Officer, big guy, he's crying. Oh, officer, help me! My hands, his hands behind his back, cuffed. But as you know, handcuffs with big people, you can just barely sometimes clip them on. These things were so hard on this guy's hand that he's crying in the cell. And I just walked into the room to, as you know, when you start your tour, you're trying to bring your memo book up to date, and he's crying, and I'm just trying to do this thing, and I'm the only one in the room. He says, officer, just please, can you loosen the cuffs a little? He's in a cell, which is unusual. He's in a cell, the cuffs should come off. I don't know how he got in there. I just came to work. But I went to the extent of opening up the cell, asking him to turn around. He turned around, and I loosened the cuffs. I didn't take them off. I loosened the cuffs. Well, the officer, the white officer who arrested him, had him under, came in yelling and screaming, "What are you doing? Why? This is my prison," and all that. And I didn't pay any attention to him. I continued what I was doing. I loosened the cuff. I closed the cell. And now I got to deal with the DO, the desk officer. Because the young white officer who, whatever problem he had with this arrestee, led him to the point where he thought he needed to put some extra punishment on this individual. Which, as I know, you keep those cuffs on lock like that long enough, there's no blood going to the person's hand. He's crying.
Yes.
And so humanely, how could you not step in? This is a person, to me, this is a person, to him, I don't know, less than calling him, what white people tend to call us when they totally disrespect us, when we have no humanity, when they could treat us in a manner that we basically fuel for their existence.
Yes. Yeah.
And I even you always feel bad when you bring reality into what we deal with, because it's so horrendous. One thing I thought of today that would be an interesting experiment is for there to be no white police officers. They kind of lost their ability or creds to actually perform the duty without having a racial problem. So now, 500 years of slavery, let's say 50 years of no white police officers anywhere, and let other nationalities then just be able to hold that job. I know that that's insane, because the reality is, just as when a person of color is being followed with the lights on and they have to pull over, fearing for their life. This isn't a police stop where they may get a summons. Most of us feel like we may be killed during this confrontation or this incident. And so that fear level that not only people of color, but any person that's being pulled over by the police has that fear, when they see those lights in the rearview mirror or whatever. So you have to pull over. Substantially, I think, the change would help people, the people of the other race, to appreciate, just how difficult it is to deal with law enforcement that doesn't look like them.
Right.
And that's a hard thing. If you've never had that experience, you've got to feel that. That's a very difficult thing to live through.
Yes. What's so funny? Segueing, everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. Special guest Frank Ogard, my co-host Kevin Branzetti. Segueing into race, we're going to talk about the murderer, as we so eloquently call him now. I think personally, the world, first we got a verdict, unanimous verdict of guilty, 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 and it was a shame that we had to be on pins and needles to wonder if this was going to be another officer get away with committing a crime on trial. You know, we know about officers moving places, you know, to like cop friendly towns and stuff, and having they say, trial of your peers and stuff that magnitude. But was one thing. Like I right now to this day, I've gotten text messages of officers still talking derogatory things about George Floyd, and I'm glad I hadn't seen it or I wasn't in that group, and I choose not to go in there because I personally would probably kind of like lose it, and that's real talk because this is a difference between a good officer. This was a man that, like Kevin, you said last week, I think, abused his privileges. You know what I'm saying? As on the job, and was just sinister, sinister in what he did to this man. And no matter what this man's past record was, that was torture. And anybody that doesn't agree with that, then something's wrong with you. You need yourself leave the computer or after real talk, and then go to the hospital and get yourself checked in, and tell them like you're crazy or you're stupid. You know what I'm saying? And use those words, those adjectives, to see him. But the thing was, there wasn't anybody that wasn't scared or when I say scared, I'm using maybe the anxiety a little bit, the wonder, like, yo, I hope somebody in that juror and those one of those jurors do not say not guilty. You know what I'm saying? We was just like, oh my God. But the fact of it is, now we still have to worry about the sentencing because the judge seemed a little iffy, you know, between 12 and 40 years. Don't give the man 13 and a half. You know what I'm saying? Like if he gets less than 39 and a half, it still would be upset because to do 20 years is upset because I think he should be tried on the fact of he destroyed the oath. You know, he disrespected the uniform, he disrespected the oath, and you are the person that's supposed to protect and serve, and you did it in front of everybody. And like I said, we've all seen clips of somebody getting shot or ran over or hit and stuff like that. But this was the first time I think we all saw a uniform officer for 9 minutes take his time and kill somebody in front of the world. Kevin, give me your insight on that, and then Frank, follow up, please.
Frank used a good word before: punishment. Right?
Right.
That the guy cuffed in the cell was being punished. The murderer was punishing this guy on the street. Right? That was it. Right. Our job is not to punish.
Right.
You know, are there people that deserve a good punch in the face? Of course there are. There are people who deserve to be, beaten like a dog. Beaten like a dog's a bad phrase because no dog deserves to be beaten. But that is never going to be our job, never can be our job, and never should be our job. And if, anybody in law enforcement thinks that's their job, they're going to wind up in a cell at some point. Mm-hmm. Our job is not
worse than that, Kevin. If you take on that demeanor, you take that home with you, Kevin.
Yeah.
You can't be that way on the street and not develop something that's going to hurt your personal life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your children, your home, your friends, your family. If you become that person, you are becoming that person not just to the victims that you are perpetrating law enforcement against. You're doing unwittingly. You're doing that to your family.
Yeah. Yep. And the other end of that, Bill, the nervousness of a trial. Look, trials can be crapshoots.
Of course,
we forget about high-profile trials, but we've all, as cops, been through trials. I've seen trials. I've had a trial where the jury didn't convict the guy of shooting the victim, but they convicted him of possessing the gun that shot the victim, which is just to me mind-blowing. So my guy had the gun, and the gun was used to shoot the guy, but you don't believe he shot. Like there are times juries come back with things, and you just scratch your head. There are some high-profile cases where there have been acquittals, and I'm not talking cop cases. I'm talking other things in the world. Juries are tough. They're always going to be stressful. No matter how much of a slam dunk a case seems, it only takes one nut.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, Kevin, we've all been on trials. Like I said, I've been on a plethora of trials, and I've seen trials get thrown out because the guy's hat was black and we called it blue. You know what I'm saying? Like, really? Like, they're both dark in color. It wasn't like he had a white hat and you called it black. But you know what's so funny? It is what it is in certain places like that. So with that being said, I want to segue to this and ask you this, Frank. I put a post up on social media today, and I see the comments. I'm going to read the comments, Pinky and Amir. I put a post up that basically, like, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember right off the top of my head, but we shouldn't be so happy in the fact that he was like, this wasn't justice. This was just accountability.
It's not even I hate to interrupt you, but realistically, there's still more charges that he should be charged with. He's in jail, but I hope that the advocates get the federal government to charge him with these racial charges, these terroristic charges. This man did more than a murder. This was an example of terrorism.
Yes.
The little kid is standing there begging him to stop, and he won't stop. You know, this is an example of how, and all the officers present are there assisting, holding back anyone from stopping this murder.
Right.
You know what that does to a community? I mean, he didn't just kill that man. Look at what he did to the world.
Yeah.
This is not something that a murder conviction solves. This is huge. This he showed us just how law enforcement looks at people of color as if you have nothing. And that was one of his statements. You can't win.
Yes. Isn't that
you
something?
Can't win. And what is he talking about when he says you can't win? You can't win. I win.
Yes. And like,
I can do what I want.
Like I said, his facial expressions were so sinister. Kevin, before you comment, I just want to read some of the comments that came in. Pastor Graves, remember, he'll be with us next week. He's the fourth Monday every month. Spiritual Talk with Pastor Kevin Graves. That's a great show. You should please tune in for that. He said Derek Chauvin displayed depraved indifference to human life. Pinky said, real talk, that murder was intentional. When that SOB was found guilty, he still looked like nothing was going to happen. Remember, the white supremacists run laws enforcement. I do not believe he is going to get much time. I could be wrong. I hope so, Pinky. Nothing changes until they start doing the mess to more whites. Then will there be change. We want to talk about that because even Chris Cuomo said that people won't understand things like that until they happen to white kids. And Kevin, you and I mentioned that last week about when we talked about Dante Wright. You know, here's a guy, for the most part, because like you said, Kevin, he had a gun charge, which is a misdemeanor, and they say because that's like whatever it was. You know, the bottom line is he was predominantly a good kid, because the bottom line is, I know for a fact, Kevin, you know for a fact, and Frank, you know for a fact, we've seen white officers get on this job with more things in their jacket, but they still get on this job because they have a phone call. I know that for a fact because they tried to hold me back. And shout out to my investigator at the time. He was like, yo, I got guys coming in front of me with DWIs, but then I get a call from Chief so-and-so or Inspector so-and-so and push it through. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. With that being said, and saying all that, this is just crazy to me how he was just so sinister, and he looked and he wanted to do that. He wanted to kill that man. And it puts, like Kevin, you said before, it puts a black eye on things. We talked about, like you said, I'm talking about Dante Wright too. You know, we just got a young lady that was shot, 16. We have the video for that. I sent that to you, Kev.
Got it ready.
Yep. Matter of fact, we'll skip it. We'll go to that. Let me just read the comments, and then we'll go to that video, Frank.
Okay.
And then also, Kev, do we have the one where the young Spanish kid in Chicago got killed? Because that's a big discrepancy. A lot of times, there's a lot of things where people think that might be a clean shoot, and that's a conversation that we need to have too with split-second decisions when I'm chasing somebody with a gun and he throws it away, and then I turn around. So that's another conversation. But right now, let me just finish reading what people are saying. And everybody, thank you for chiming in. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Foster. We have Frank Ogard in the building with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. And this is Real Talk every Wednesday. This is what we do. Amir said his facial expression was cavalier energy, was just imaginable. Kevin Graves said, again, Derek Sheldon is an employee of an unjust system. Accountability is great. However, the system needs to be rehabilitated. And I'm sure, Pastor, you and I will talk about that next week. My man, N.W. Lewis, he's in the building. Interesting to see if U.S. Attorney's Office gets involved in the hate crime aspect, something that, Frank, you alluded to. That's a big topic. We definitely will need to discuss that. Great
There are more
point,
charges
Lewis.
that should come, sure.
Yes, exactly. So, Kevin, what do we have coming up? So we're going to discuss.
We're going to do the 16-year-old first.
All right.
Give me one second to share.
Everybody, we're going to show you something. I don't know if you're squeamish or not, but of course, certain things may be sensitive. So we're putting that disclaimer out there right now. Right now, recently, there was a 16-year-old girl that was shot. She called the police, supposedly in lieu of being jumped by somebody or another female. She had a knife. Officer shows up and shoots her. We'll Monday morning quarterback this conversation, or we'll just have a good conversation about it. We ready, Kev? I'm gonna go live with it.
What's going on? What's going on? Hey, 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 get down, get down, get down, get down.
I believe the video now gives you, because I've watched this earlier today, gives you a slow-mo version, which is good to see.
Right.
Who's the person that's going to be shot? Are they shot already?
She's shot. She's on the floor. So
That's
what this
lady on the floor.
This is a bad
On the
clip.
ground.
There's a clip that goes back further. This girl, there's a fight. This girl went, from what I saw, we'll see where the slow-mo comes, had the girl against the car. She has the knife in hand, and she's swinging the knife when the cop shoots her.
Okay. All right.
Can you back? Can we see
I
that
need
again?
to. If this.
Can we see that again?
There's a long.
Yeah, hold on, Frank. We're going to show it
longer
again.
version of this that's in slow-mo. I'm going to show this again while I look for the slow-mo.
Okay.
All right. Everybody, right now, this is when we hold it for 1 second, Kev.
Because what you're missing is, hang on. Yeah, you said hold it.
Yes, I just want to let everybody, our listening audience, know that right now, we're speaking from a law enforcement standpoint. Now we'll talk about if she's trying to hurt somebody with that knife, we can shoot to protect the life of somebody else. I don't know all in detail. Sometimes I get this information, Kevin and I go over it, and then we bring it to you and we talk about it and discuss it. This is something that, of course, is being highlighted due to the fact that, Dante Wright was just killed. We just finished having a trial with Eric Floyd with the monster Shaven. So, of course, a lot of things are heightened. And that's why, of course, I want to talk about the young Latin man that was shot, 13-year-old boy. We want to discuss that too. But I think I've sent Kevin some other stuff, but we're going to go back to this. Now we're going to play this again and try to dissect this all together, everybody. Put on your thinking caps and tell me what you see. Go ahead, Kev. You're muted. Mm-hmm. All right. Go ahead. So stop it right there, Kevin. Stop it right there. So what we're told is that what we're saying is that she was going after that young lady in the pink.
Yes.
To stab her, and this officer took. He did his job. Go ahead. All right, good. Mm-hmm. everybody. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. And we have a special guest, Frank Ogard, in building, retired uh, NYPD officer, detective, as ourselves. This is the one thing, this is the show where we're trying to give you the best scenario that we can to help you understand what happens in the mind of a law enforcement, why things are done, and how do we rectify this. This is it, Kevin. And if I'm correct, I think Kevin is giving us another view or a more extended version of this. Go ahead, Kevin.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. So this is a longer view, and they're going to do a slow-mo first and then regular speed. You can see this is produced by the police department in Ohio. Both the previous video and this one are taking videos of the same display. Right.
Okay.
It's the 9-camera system that police department uses.
All right.
I'm just gotta. All right, let me get past his opening conversation and let's get into the video.
Because of the redaction process and the public laws. What we will be able to show you is the basic information. At 4:32 this afternoon, officers were just.
Sorry, I'm just trying to fast forward till we get to the thing. I don't want to hear his. And there it goes. He just hit play.
What's going on? What's going on? Hey, hey, hey! Get out! Get out!
So that was in real time. The knife is behind her as she fell. But they'll give you a slow-mo version afterwards.
All right.
She had a knife, she just went at her. She came at her with a knife. As per policy, officers immediately assessed the female for injuries, summoned a medic, and began CPR. We will now show you the video in slow motion so you can see what the video shows is the female with the knife attempting to stab the first female laying prone, and then the second female that is pushed against the vehicle.
And this, unfortunately, slow-mo takes a little bit of time.
Right.
But it's much better to watch it in this view. And right now in the right hand, you see the knife, and the arm is up, swinging at the girl in pink.
And she's already stabbed the
And that's
lady.
where she shot.
The lady on the ground has already been stabbed as well.
I don't know. Yeah, it seems like it. She might have attacked her.
No, the first lady that falls, who's back behind the camera view.
Yes.
I don't know if she's been stabbed or just knocked to the floor in the fight. I'll actually, for a moment there, I thought, and I want to go back a little bit, that the other person gave her the knife. Let me go back just a hair with this. All right, watch. I'm going to pause this. Is he handing her? Watch her hand and his hand. Oh, okay, no, they just swing past. But the woman in the blue jeans,
Is this guy
the one with the knife,
kicking or he's getting out the way?
He's kicking the one on the floor. So this is a little bit of a melee here, right? There's more than one person involved. This one got knocked to the floor. This guy comes in and kicks her.
Right there.
Right
if we
now,
could
you could
circle
see-
right there, you can see that knife. You can see the knife right there.
That is the knife right there. And
Right.
that arm is going to swing at the woman in pink.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's,
She's
you know,
winding back.
and right now is when the gunshots are hit, boom, 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 and then she goes down.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. Let me just read some of the comments while we're looking at that. Darren said the young lady in pink was also in the line of fire. We'll discuss that, Darren. Stephanie said the three girls that came to her house to jump her should be charged. None of this would have happened had that not been. I absolutely agree with you. Stephanie said also, furthermore, why didn't any of the adults intervene? Yeah, listen, when these are kids acting, these are adults acting like kids. Exactly. Sharon, she did not stab the first girl. Okay, thank you for that. So, Frank, you're the senior officer in this. What do you think about this shooting? Good, bad, and different? What's your take on it?
Well, obviously, all we have to go by is this video, which I applaud law enforcement for finally putting video on police officers. And in a case like this, I think it exonerates the officer. You could not get closer to having to make a decision. I mean, the in slow motion, clearly, it looks like he stopped this perpetrator in mid swing of a murder. I mean, that is, this camera really just captured, an officer making a split decision that saved another person's life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I don't know what led up to it, what happened before it, but if I'm looking from the officer's perspective, because he's wearing a body camera, and that's one, I've always said that the camera could save you or hurt you. In this case, clearly, at least from what I'm looking at here, if there's another camera angle, view something else, but I mean, this camera captures pretty much what the officer has to see in real time, not in slow motion. He's seeing something, and in slow motion, you see that he actually, by firing, saved the lady in pink's life.
Right. Now I have a question. Kevin, give me your insight before I ask these next questions from the audience. What do you think about the shooting, Kevin? Good, bad, different?
Yeah, it's good shooting. You can't get any more clear with that. Not only is it a good shooting, this guy had some spectacular aim, right? If I heard it the first time live, right, it was 3 shots. It sounded like to me.
3 or 4, 3 or 4.
All 3 of the 4 hit right. He didn't then, keep going. He had composure. It's impressive, actually.
Right. Because we all know law enforcement can't shoot. Exactly.
Yeah, you can't shoot, and then you got craziness going on in front of you. But he couldn't let her stab the girl. I mean, you just can't. Now that can't happen.
This segues into the next question that thank you. That Cat Rose. Why 4 shots? I can answer, but I'll let you go first, Kevin, and then Frank, and then I'll answer.
Well, one, Bill, I've never been a thing for counting shots.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We're taught to shoot to stop the threat.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's what this man did. Better than just about any cop I've ever seen. Right? He shot as she fell. He stopped. And that's it. I have seen. I remember a day on patrol. I saw a guy. I got his first one there, and he was shot square in the forehead. Guy was riding a unicycle, just why you can't forget something like that. Shot right here. I sat there talking to him till the ambulance came. Right? People don't stop because they're shot one time. Some people do, and some don't. For this guy to have trigger control like that is spectacular. And I'm sorry for the person who thinks out there that 4 was why 4? Why not 1? Why not shoot in the leg? Why not do this? That's just not reality. I am still very impressed. He did not hit the young lady in pink. That he hit his target. He kept his control, and I couldn't commend a shooting more than that one. I think it was it's textbook training. You're on mute, Bill.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. Frank, what's your take on it?
Oh, well, as Kevin said, in terms of training, most people aren't aware that law enforcement has no training whatsoever in shooting at a subject other than center mass. That's the training that we receive. We're not trying to shoot at the arm. We're not trying to shoot at the leg. It's called deadly physical force. And once you are going to employ deadly physical force, the action is to stop the individual, not to kill them. But you can only imagine if you're shooting center mass, the likelihood of death is very probable. Yeah. But the intention is to stop the threat. Now, as we look at this particular shooting, the officer, I would have to watch it several more times to be a spectator with trying to be a judge in any way. Looking at a film like this or any shooting once, is doing injustice to the film and to the officer. But as Kevin indicated, he's firing until he sees the threat over. What initiated, in my mind, his first shot kept him firing until he thought the threat was over. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a hard call. I've always said that the state of New York has no death penalty, except the reality is, in the city of New York, the 35,000 men and women who are charged with making the decision on their own in an instant to perform the death penalty. So it's a lot of weight. It's something I think that needs to be addressed a lot more. That's why when I started this conversation about removing the responsibility of automobiles, there's so much to remove. So whereas the people who are charged with this responsibility receive the best training and, more money, and there's a lot more to it. I think there should be more rank in law enforcement. There's got to be an extra stripe. It can't be from, police officer to sergeant. There should be another rank in between. The whole structure needs to be more friendly and accessible to the officers. We're doing a hell of a job. The responsibility is huge, and it should be that the training should be up there with a commensurate with the task that we're given.
Got you. Everybody, I think to Kat's question, a lot of times I don't even think equate to a video game, and I hate to minimize it in that aspect, but like when you're playing a video game, whatever you do, you don't shoot once. It's the same thing and magnified in real life with a mentality. You want to see the threat stopped. So very seldom do we think one shot is he shot until he saw her drop. or and it's a shame to say that, but you would do that in any other scenario. What we see in the movies really doesn't happen. That one shot, the pune, and you ducking and the person shooting. As it's not really happening like that. If you know to be shot at, trust me, it's a deep situation. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host Kevin Branzetti and my special guest Frank Ogard, in the building, retired law enforcement uh, officer, private investigator right now, and man of many talents. Crystal said, yeah, like you said, Crystal. Why did the man kick the girl on the ground? I think anybody can enlighten us on the story. Supposedly, this was a party or her house, and they came to jump her. And I guess for some reason they were outside. And then when the police came, it seems like that rage came out of her, or she didn't know the police was there, and she was coming out to defend herself. But the fact that the threat was outside and it wasn't inside puts her in a precarious situation, because she was now going to look for trouble. Uh, Lewis said, looked like third party self defense from this angle. Exactly. And like he said, Kevin, he said, definitely great discipline fire. Stephanie says, should he have not tried to diffuse the fight, especially to the other officers got there? I'll comment and say, first and foremost, and I'll ask you to be an officer with me, Stephanie, on this. We come to the scene and we see a female charging somebody else with a knife in their hand. How do you diffuse that without that other person getting stabbed? Because that's the only way. He didn't have reaction time to get in front of her, which there isn't any officer that's going to do that, even though we're the first line of defense to protect and serve. But officers are not going to jump in front of somebody trying to stab somebody else. That's not what's going to happen. They're going to try to grab you from behind or whatever the case may be. But I'm looking for the place where he could have diffused that, because that was usually with diffusing something, you have a chance to talk about it or de-escalate it. There, I didn't see that point. I saw him walking up, and then he just saw the action, so he reacted. Gentlemen, if y'all saw something different, correct me, please, or comment on that. So Stephanie, I don't know how he would have been able to diffuse that. Jay Burnett in the house, what's up, brother? He said, don't cops learn how to disarm someone who has a knife before resorting to deadly force? There were two other cops on the scene, according to the video. They took the easy and more deadly way out. Um, that was what I saw, Bill. Opportunity to diffuse wasn't there. Absolutely. Jay,
Yeah, the only other thing I could think of that might, and it has to do with how much time was there before the shooting, who the officers were, the first officers on the scene, what equipment did they have with them? There's a lot of other things up until that moment that the officer who makes the decision to do the shooting, he sees something that I think should be clear to everybody relative to this particular incident. But again, as the person who's calling in, something else could be done. If something else could be done, it would have to be before this shooting. Law enforcement, we carry nightsticks in the evening. We're supposed to carry nightsticks. It's a very important tool, and it can be brutal. But it's a level of force, one level less than firing shots. But you put yourself, once you start thinking about using a nightstick or some other device, in proximity to physically getting injured yourself, which, I mean, we're paid to do to some extent, but depending on the individual, but the nightstick, the tasers, other kinds of equipment, are they available at the time when you arrive at the scene? How much time is involved? So I can't make a determination based on
Kevin, I want you to show it one more time, because I want Jay to see it and I want everybody else to see it. I see what you're talking about, Colin and Eleanor Bumpers. I think that might have been a different scenario. in lieu of what happened with her.
Every scenario is different. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but I understand what you're saying. But I want Jay to see this again. I see what you said, Greg. He said, I agree. In this case, the officer may have saved a life and had to act quickly in real time. To do it.
This is slow motion. So like even in slow motion, this happens pretty fast.
Yeah,
You know,
but what,
and to Jay's thing about cops being trained to take knives from people, no, we're not. We are not taught. That is a movie, TV show maneuver. You see it all the time. The guy swings at somebody with a knife, and they do a quick arm move and flip the knife around and take it and throw the guy.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
it does not happen. We are not trained in that.
No, yeah. I mean, I just want to show this again, just for his edification. And let me finish what Greg said. He said, having said that, it's hard to process another police shooting that resulted in the loss of a life. Absolutely, because I've sent Kevin some things, Greg, too, that we're going to show. A white officer that, he didn't do anything to his assailant, or the man that was trying to get him. But let's go back here, because I want to see what Jay is talking about with all the officers. I saw the other officers come after the shooting. I don't see the other officers here. Kevin, can we back up a little bit more, because I want to see what is there anything that this officer in the line of what people are talking about could have been diffusing. There isn't any officers that could have stepped in to prevent, tackled her, or anything that magnitude. So I didn't see any of that. So
I don't see anybody between them right now.
Right.
That there's nobody.
And
there's no other cop there at this point.
And also, you got to take into consideration that if someone is suggesting that the officer could have done something other than what was done, there are civilians there who, if something else could have been done, could have and should have done it as well. So, I mean, if you want to be, if you just want to stand back and point fingers, that's one thing. But one of the things that I would like to see in the future is more community participation in helping law enforcement in these kinds of situations, to help diffuse and working in cooperation. So.
Can I use your phone? Because Mom's having a
Now, see, here we are. The girl down is on the ground.
Yes.
Dude is kicking her. He need to be arrested. Go a little more, Kevin. Go ahead. Let's see. All right, now, stop right here. Stop right here. I don't see any officers in there, Jay, that could have broken that up. Stephanie, I don't see any officers.
I think he had to shoot. He had to shoot.
Right.
I mean, he saved someone's life by this shooting, and rarely can you say that. I mean, if it wasn't for this slow motion photograph, you wouldn't be able to make that kind of a call. But that lady in pink is alive because, or at least not stabbed. I can't say alive or dead, but her life is saved by this officer.
And go ahead, finish playing it, Kev. Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't see another way out. I wish there was a tool we had. I wish I had a Batman utility belt and some cruel items. Right. We don't, and nobody's come up with them. There is no training for this. And even if I was trained to take a knife from somebody, I don't know if I could have made that distance up.
Yeah, I got my man Lewis
gotten there before that knife goes into that girl's throat. Like I don't know if I could get there that fast.
Now I'm gonna put this.
I don't know if you want to get there that fast.
Yeah, and also too, I got my man Lewis in. Hold on, fellas. I have my man Lewis in the building, and he's a martial artist just like myself, and he's been in it maybe even longer than me. And he's an expert with knives and weapons and stuff like that. I don't even think Lewis, and correct me if I'm wrong, would you have even tried to do it? Because I know damn well that wouldn't have been something that I would have wanted to. A lot of times dealing with close combat in that situation, you're more reactionary unless somebody's charging at you if you can't get to your firearm. And Lewis said a knife is a very personal close quarter weapon. Rather get shot than deal with a knife, especially a person swinging while in a rage. Gina said the other cop came in at the frame right after the shots. Lewis, the girl in pink definitely would have been injured at the very least. Jay, it happened so fast, so I see what you guys are saying. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate that. So and let's all three. I think we all agree, and everybody agrees that this was a good shooting. Thank God for the body cam this time. That the defense, like Greg said, though, another life lost, and it seems like it just came after Dante, right after the young Latin boy young man that got shot. Kev, did we have that video? Let's go to that one.
Which one do you want, Bill?
Which one do you have ready to run? You have anything ready to run or no? Because I want to. Go ahead.
This is the release of the Chicago one.
Yes, that's the one I want. Okay, you ready? I'm gonna start. Everybody, this might be something that you're not ready to. You might have. Can you freeze it? Yeah, everybody. This is the shooting of the young man that was killed in Chicago. I'm not going to say any persuasive of what he was doing and how he's doing. We'll discuss that after. But he did have a gun. So we're going to go to this right now. And Kev, start it from the beginning, please. Go ahead.
All right, let me. I tell you, the other tough thing in life with these videos is trying to find somebody who's put together a proper set of them.
Adam Toledo.
Hey, show me your hand. Stop it.
Now, for those who don't know what Shot Spotter is, I'm going to pause there just so we can explain this. Shot Spotter is a system used, and we use it in lots of big cities around the country. What it is they're basically microphones set up on towers that triangulate gunshots. So when they hear a gunshot, it picks it up. It is quite precise. I know this for a fact in New York City. It is very precise. It can get within a few hundred, like 100, 200 yards of the shooting is very normal. What the advantage of Shot Spotter is, that call goes to police within seconds. When there's a shooting on a location anywhere in New York, we'll just use New York as an example. Somebody calls 911, it goes to a dispatcher, then it goes to the police 911 operator who sends it to the cops. It's minutes. So the Shot Spotter system saves minutes. It speeds up the response several minutes. That's what it is. So there is, and we get a lot of calls. Bill, how many calls and how many calls we ever received in our lifetime where it was there's shots fired or man with a gun and it's BS. Absolutely. Right? There's a lot of those. Shot Spotter is a very precise system. It's actually well tested, well documented. It works well. So as a cop, there was gunshots at that location, right? When you go to a Shot Spotter call. So that's what they're responding to. It's a Shot Spotter call. There were two people there, a 21-year-old and the kid.
Yes. So it says right here, it says officer chased Adam into an alley where he was fatally shot in the chest. The video appears to show Adam unarmed and trying to surrender with his hands up. So the shooting happened less than 20 seconds after the officer got out the car. Now he's chasing. Prosecutors say Adam was holding a gun at the time. So give me a light. Roman was one who fired the shots that first brought officers to the scene. Now Kevin is playing this, but we're gonna show it in live in real time when he gets a chance. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot spoke before this footage and was released to the public and said that the city
for our young people who are here, that they can walk a life in their streets, in their neighborhoods without fear, without feeling like they are prey, wherever the violence comes from, wherever it comes from.
All right, Kevin.
That's not the best. This is not the best video, I have to admit.
I know, but just let it roll. Right. So let people see it.
Hey, show me your hand. Stop it.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you two talk for a moment, and I'm going to see if I could find one with the actual shooting because they stop it on this video. And
Okay.
I want to see.
So everybody,
unless they didn't release that part of the video.
No, I think they did. I think everybody. Let me just put out some clarity, and I'll have Frank piggyback off this statement. We know what's all the talk about law enforcement killing people of color, and I know everybody knows I speak out on behalf of that, especially as an African American man or a brown man, whichever you want to call me, of Latin descent or African American descent.
How about a United States citizen?
That too, Frank. That too.
Period. How about that? How about us all being the same from the same country?
Yes. Okay. Whichever way you want to articulate it. With that being said, split-second decisions when to have pursuit. I have been in pursuits where a person had a gun and thrown it. Thank God I didn't have to shoot him. But the thing is, I'm trying to remember the situation or one of the situations in lieu of chasing somebody and they having the gun. You know, adrenaline. He knew this guy had a gun. This young man had a gun. The young guy threw the gun. He turned. It's going to go down probably as a justified shooting for those that don't like that. I don't know what to say in regards to that. Split-second decision. If he didn't shoot, we have a young man hanging out with a 20-year-old guy, and I'm not trying to give suggestive thinking to this, but you know, it's obviously this kid was doing some bad. Doesn't mean he had to die. Please don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm not saying he had to die, not at all. But you're chasing somebody in the alley, you're running. He didn't know if he still had the gun. Eventually, I guess he saw that the gun was thrown. I don't know. Only the officer can tell you. I can only tell you this from what we're watching. But I will say this, whether you like it or not, I think it will go down as a justified shooting. Frank, give me your take on this, and before Kevin shows the video.
I got a little bit better one.
All right. You want to play it, Kev?
Yeah.
All right.
So, and you watch the secondary video of it.
Or you want to wait until after we see the video?
Yeah, wait till after you see it.
Okay.
Now, don't stop buffering.
Stop it!
All right.
The key moment takes about 1 second, according to Chicago police officials.
It's after
Stillman
this.
reports seeing a gun in Toledo's right hand. The say evident in this video freeze frame, his arm at his side. And then a fraction of a second later, his hands moving upward without a gun. And he is shot once in the chest and killed. Officer Stillman's body cam taking this video of the gun that had allegedly been in Toledo's hand a few feet away from his body along the fence where the teenager was cornered. ABC7 legal analyst Gil Sofer, a former federal prosecutor, tonight says the case comes down to a question of when Toledo was shot.
Within a second before that, we see what appears to be a gun in Toledo's hand, and that he drops it before he raises his hands. If that's the case, then the officer is a very credible defense.
This incident was solved in 0.8 milliseconds. So it happened very quickly, happened probably faster than science has proved an officer would be able to think his way through the situation.
It appeared to me that the young man had his hands up at the time he was shot. It also appears to me that when the young man made the move for the gate or the fence, that opening where the shooting occurred, before he turned around, it appears that he disposed of, if he had a gun, they disposed of it right before the shooting. It does appear evident to me at the time the officer fired his weapon.
34-year-old CPD officer Eric Stillman does not have a history.
Optimum's best deal on gig speed just got better. Get 1 gig internet now for only $45 a month, and we'll boost our offer with a $200 of prepaid card.
Frank, what you just saw, give me your take on it. I'm gonna read everybody's comments in a few minutes. But what you just saw, Frank, from that clip, what's your take?
The broader picture for me is, we have a gun problem in this country, and I hate to move it, from directly this particular shooting. We have shootings constantly, all the time, and we've got a gun problem. And just like I said about the automobile issue, we expect the police. We expect the police to handle a proliferation of guns that are funneled. There's money involved. Follow the money. How does these guns get filtered into the Black community so readily? An organization you hear very little about, but it's their responsibility to fix this problem, is the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms people. Why can't we put some kind of dent into this money market of putting guns into the hands of people of color, them using the gun in one form or fashion, being arrested for carrying the gun, and then that gun goes into the police custody, and subsequently those guns, after accumulating these hundreds of thousands of guns, get destroyed. So let's go back to where the money is.
Okay. All right, Frank. I don't want you to deviate too much from that. I totally agree.
Okay, I know that where you want to go with this, and what we're looking at here is a child with a gun.
Right.
That's what we're looking at. We're looking at a child with a gun. So just to focus on
that's the elephant in the room.
That's the elephant. There's a child with a gun, and we just want to focus on whether this police officer comes into contact with this child, and within a moment, he has to make this decision. We don't want to take into consideration all this other stuff that put that child there and put that officer there.
Well, what's so funny? We can discuss that. I have no problems discussing that, but the bottom line is still lives will be changed from this shooting right here. Rather than because. It's
going to happen again, though. My point is, if we try to determine this individual shooting, it looks bad to me. The camera says his hands are up without a gun. It looks bad to me, and it looks bad. It looks bad to the public. The officer would have to have nerves of steel, not to fire.
Right.
You'd have to have nerves of steel not to fire. I've not fired. Maybe you've not fired. I've had opportunity to kill people, bro. And I agree. And if you've done that, then you have the dreams at night. Did you take too long? Did I take too long? I know I was in a position where I could fire, and I'm squeezing something. I've been in a situation I'm squeezing off one, and the round don't go off, and I stopped. And it's a terrifying feeling either way. It's as terrifying not to shoot as to shoot, because now you got to live with, wait a minute, am I taking too long for these decisions? And you second guess yourself through. So this is a big issue. I'm not faulting the officer. I'm just saying the kid's hands were up. Now he's got seconds to, make that determination in his own mind, based on everything, where he's from, who he's from, what's his character, nature. All of that is in this thing you're asking me. I'm watching just a video. I just see a kid toss the gun and put his hands up. It's seconds. Now, I'm not going to say to whether the officer's right or wrong. He did his job. He's at work. Everything that he's trained to do, he's doing. He's running after somebody with a gun, which takes a lot of nerves in the first place. How many people chase people down the street with, this got a gun? So I don't know whether or not I'm answering the question.
You are.
No. You are, Frank.
You went all the way, as my parents used to say, you went all the way around Robin Hood's farm to get the Sherwood Warrens. No, you ain't answered the question. I'm asking you what you think. And I get what you're talking about, the elephant in the room, though. I understand that, because the bottom line is, this is a 13-year-old boy that got shot. And let's in all seriousness, everybody, I think what Frank is talking about, I'm all about getting at this young boy's parents. Who's his guardians? Why is your 13-year-old son out here hanging with a 21-year-old man? You know what I'm saying?
That's all of that's in this position that this officer is put in. And
yeah. So that's the big elephant in the room that I definitely get. And I'm totally with you on this, Frank. You know, and like I said, we're just talking about this because not that we want to not disregard that at all. I totally want to talk about that. We can talk about that due to time restraints. You know, there's some other things I might want to show. But the thing is, if we want to talk about that, let's talk about this as a 13-year-old man of color out here in the street. Why is he 13 years old hanging out in the street? Who is his guardians? Now, if you want to start talking about really putting the hammer down on things,
let me just give you
his parents should be charged with some crimes.
I agree 100%, and that's a whole. Now we can want to go in that, make the wider analysis about children being out and parents being responsible. That's something that I am 100% in favor of. That if a child gets into trouble, the parent has to suffer the consequence. Parents have, but the problem with that is that we don't have support services for parents when they see their child going in the wrong direction. That we need to put, and that's where you take some of the money from law enforcement and create these other services. You see, that's where the system needs to be changed. You know, yes. I'm on your program, and we're specifically trying to identify individual issues. When in fact we have system problems.
Yes, I agree with that.
We've got system problems, and we can address these system problems to help everybody. We can help law enforcement, we can help the community, but we need to address what are these system problems and how do we put systems in place, new systems that will give people, especially parents, support. So as if they see their child going in a direction, they don't have to call thinking their child's going to be arrested. They can call services and say, I can't handle this.
Yeah, and you know, and that's definitely a conversation that we can have. I'm just, you know, I want to just stay on the topics because if we stay too much on certain things, we won't cover all the bases. But Frank, you are always welcome to come back, and we can specifically talk about how to solve the problems that you are definitely bringing to the forefront, because those are issues in lieu of dealing with the money trail and the parents and how do we deal with this situation. I just want to read some of the comments. I didn't mean to cut you off. I want Kevin to comment, but I just wanted to read some of these statements and comments. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. I could have gotten to her fast enough to stop the attack. Okay, going back to that other attack, Lewis said, even I could have gotten to her fast enough to stop that attack. All right. Kat, praying anyone I know wouldn't be put in a situation like this. However, if so, I would want someone to do whatever they had to do to save my loved one's life. Absolutely. In this situation, I must agree there was a deadly threat for the girl in pink. Those standing watching should have done something to stop instead of watching, especially the man that said he was the father and he saw everything just said. You know what's so funny? Let me just comment on this real quick. Kat, that's a whole nother elephant in the room too. Why are people of color all about gloating and celebrating death? In New York, people are getting shot, stabbed, and like it's okay. Before we let Frank go, we can discuss that. But you know, crime is out of control. Police, especially what I can talk about for NYPD right now, are really not doing nothing. They're reacting in the past. They're just taking reports. They're not proactive like cops, like Frank was and Kevin and I were. They're not doing that. And I'm telling you factual. I'm not telling you anything hypothetical. Other officers, we can talk about how they're acting due to whatever your thought process is of who they are or what their ethnicity is and what you think officers in other places are feeling in regards to who they voted for and what liberal party or what parties they follow. I just sent something to Kevin recently today that an officer in Norfolk, Virginia, got fired for supporting that Kyle, whatever his name, because he he gave money to his fund to get bail or lawyer,
Rittenhouse.
legal defense.
Mhm.
Like, he's an ass. He deserved to get fired. So I'm just saying, we can talk about all the elephants in the room at any time. So I have no problems addressing those issues, but I'm just trying to give you all the best content that we can. And I tell you all, anytime you want to talk about something, put it in the chat. We'll discuss it. The one thing about Real Talk Chronicles, we're not scripted. We can deviate from any issue or conversation that that's happening right now. I'm just trying to cover bases that I think you want to talk about and things of that magnitude. Lewis said there's an app that we use in security that can pinpoint gunfire location. Absolutely. Stephanie said we have shot spotters in neighboring neighborhoods, and more often than not, in a car backfire, there are all those instances where it would be gunshots. The sit-in app notifies us. Absolutely. What's up, Vanetta? She says how. Darren said yes, he knew the guy had a gun, but the kid did comply. He followed the officer's instructions to the letter. He told him to stop and put his hands up. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story before I go on. There was a time I was working. I think Kevin might have been Snoo. You might have not been there that night. You might have. It doesn't make a difference because it wasn't something I discussed after. It was a car stop. Supposedly the guy was getting away with drugs. He jumped in another car, or I don't know if it was a cab or not. Whatever car I was in a chase car, and we pulled the car over. The window was down, but it was tinted, and I could see the guy's eyes. I come up to the car where it was enough that I could see his eyes, and I said, "Put your hands up." The guy drops down to the floor in the back of the cab, out of my eyesight. He drops his hands straight down, and he ducks down. I opened up the car door, scared as shit. And when I say scared, not knowing what was going to happen next. Was he reaching for something? Because that was the first thing in my mind, that he was reaching for something. And I wanted to be able to see. I reacted to the reach to see. Could he have been reaching for a gun? He didn't. What he was trying to do was stash the drugs that he had. And it wasn't a small amount. It was a bag of knife, sizable amount that he was trying to stick it under the seat. That's why he reached down. I lectured that dude for as long as we were in the cell. I told him, I said, I could have shot you. You moved trying to hide drugs. And let me tell you something. Split second decision. Would I have been justified to shoot him? Absolutely. Absolutely. He ducked down, tinted windows. I wouldn't have been able to see it. I would have been able to articulate that. Would that have been on my conscience for the rest of my life? Absolutely. Darren, I can't call this. I can only tell you, like you said, he turned around. He had his hands up. That's what the body cam shows. I don't know what this officer was thinking. It was a split second. He has to live with that decision. I personally think the department will indemnify him. That's my personal feeling. I don't know what Kevin's thought, but he can tell me what it is. I think it is. I'm not saying it's not. It's effed up. It's effed up. It is. But we talk about the elephant in the room, like Frank is saying, that this dude is 13 years old and he's out there in the street. And how the guns get in the community? That's a whole topic that Real Talk will never solve. And I'm sure as long as we're living, none of us here will be able to solve that situation, because guns will be all over this world forever. This country's obsession with guns will be it's undoing. How did I even know? I'm saying exactly what you said. What's up, Vanetta? Cass said, in this case, it is possible that the other older guy passed him the gun, and he should be charged with the crime. Absolutely. Looks like the subject have disarmed herself and surrendering. Okay, great points. Thank you, Vanetta. This is the real question, Bill Forster. Jay, are cops trained to kill their target? I heard something earlier that they are trained to hit in the largest target. That's the center mass, Jay. They'll never say shoot to kill, but they say shoot to stop, but it's shoot to kill. If they try for smaller targets, they could shoot in innocents in the universal training. It's not going to ever happen. They're never going to train to shoot to stop like that. They say shoot to stop, which is center mass, but it's vital organs, and that's what it is. Anybody wants to comment on that while I get ready to read another comment? Kevin, you want?
Yeah, I think the fact that I said center mass if you're not a shooter, if you don't train with a firearm, you don't really realize that training is shooting center mass at a target that's not moving. So your percentage in shooting a non-moving target is high. A human being, actual shooting a human being, is not a centered target. They're moving all over the place. The reason that we're trained to shoot center mass is hoping they hit the target anywhere. I mean, you really almost, in a real shooting situation, are lucky to hit a target and not hit something else, because it's not standing still, it's moving. And the idea is to stop the target from moving. It's not really, it's not to kill, it's to stop the target from doing the behavior that you believe is the kind of behavior that warrants deadly physical force.
Kevin?
Yeah, well, it is, right. It's shoot center mass. That's what it is. I got a couple of things to throw out here with this 13-year-old. Yeah, could the parents be a problem or not? Look, you can have decent parents and have a lousy, a kid falls into the wrong crew, right? Like it does happen. But I would say we need to look at family here. This 21-year-old, to me, should be charged, right? My understanding of this is they're both, in a gang. You want to stop kids going into gangs? Let's start charging the people running gangs. If you have a kid with you, you commit a crime, you're going to do X amount more years. You gotta make it where it's kids are vital to the lifeline of a gang. Mm-hmm. Gangs can't survive if they can't get 13-year-olds coming in.
Facts.
And we need to make it where it's incredibly painful for people running gangs to have a 13-year-old in. In New York City, we use that in conspiracy cases for drug gangs, and if they use the kid, it upped the ante for their charges. And I'm telling you, it hurt them.
Yes.
This is a 21-year-old man who went out with a kid, and if it turns out that he gave the kid the gun, that was the cause of that kid's death. I mean, in the end, the death is still a homicide, right? His death was by a firearm, justified or not. I would charge the 21-year-old.
Well, Kevin, that's part of my point when I made earlier about following the trail of this gun back to not only the guy who gave the kid the gun, but who gave the guy the gun who gave it to the kid.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Who gave the gun to the person who gave? Where does this gun come from? I mean, and we can do things about this. The NRA, the lobbyists who are making money, again, going back to the money aspect, is always there's money involved in this issue with people of color, especially getting illegal guns. We're being flooded with guns. So
yeah, I don't understand how guns, an industry that's controlled, right? I have nothing against anybody buying a gun, right? You want to own a gun, you have your license, you have your thing, whatever, have a gun. The fact that this industry has been overrun with the amount of illegal guns that exist out there is completely mind-blowing.
And the NRA is against any gun that has the ability to only be fired if the handler of the gun fingerprint matches the gun. Now they have the technology for that. And the manufacturers don't want that, because the supply of guns to the street is that the police, as the end be all, is going to collect these guns, destroy them, so they can put more guns on the street. We've got a problem. The minority community, especially, is being vamped on by industry. Every industry that can take advantage of our community is taking advantage of us. And it all boils down to this young man in a gang, which is a whole nother issue. Why gangs are in poor communities. It's almost like the Taliban in Afghanistan. If you depress a region, any region in the world, a mafia, all over the world, you get these gangs that come up and they take the place of a stable society. So anywhere you find instability, you find gangs to take charge.
Absolutely.
So we're not really going after we're pointing at this video with this boy. You know, the problem is so much bigger than that boy and the officer who pulls the trigger. But it's where we should start. We should want to question how did this happen? Well, the answers are there. The gang, we know it's a gang-related issue. Why are there gangs there? We know what the problems are, and we can solve these problems. But when we boil it down to pointing the finger at the victim, being the boy and the cop, I think they're both victims. This is a victim situation. Like you said, the officer who did this, I'm sure he's going to live with this the rest of his life. He knows he just killed a 13-year-old boy, and he's going to second guess himself forever. He's going to live with that.
Yeah.
Very, very well stated, Frank. Very well stated.
You said it well, Frank. It's a breakdown of society is where gangs come from, and it happens all over the world. All sorts of communities, it happens, you know, and we don't look at the problem that way, because if we look at it that way, then you can start to try to solve it.
Then you can solve it.
And Bill and I have talked about this, and, you know, you talk about things that need to be changed, and everything has multiple things, you know, and I've talked about a bunch of times, just even our city education. Where are the worst public schools? In poor neighborhoods. You know, like, it should be the other way around. Our best public schools should be in poor neighborhoods. We need to start from a youth and give them a chance from day one. But instead, we accept that we have failing, every city. You pick the top 5, top 10 failing schools, they're in poor neighborhoods. Yeah. Every one of them. They're not, you know, in New York City, the Upper West Side public schools are not, you know, having any issues, you know, rich neighborhoods. And we've lost our focus on how to fix this. And we'll talk about, you know, police reform and police reform ain't changing this.
Yes, it is. That's a part of it.
But it's not changing this. What happened with this kid's life?
Well,
it's not changing. This 13-year-old kid becoming a gang member is beyond police reform. Police reform needs to be happening too. You know, I'm just saying, for this kid, police reform wouldn't change anything. It is society's reform, and we're not helping them and giving them the right tools.
Well, I think police we need to be advocates against firearms. I think law enforcement need to step up to the plate and start saying to the NRA and all of these powerful organizations, you're putting us in a predicament to regulate the distribution of firearms, so as you can make a profit. And we need to that's what we do for a living. So we need to be advocates against firearms in this country. And we're not. Law enforcement, generally speaking, make no comment about shutting down the industry. And that's something that we can do and we should do.
Yeah. Every gun starts from a legal store.
From a legal manufacturer.
Yeah. These are not, you know, these kids don't produce guns, right? I've never met a street thug, you know, who had a factory in his backyard making guns. Every gun comes from a legit starting point.
And make no mistake, the United States is one of the biggest arms distributors across the planet.
Yes.
We're in the gun sale making, killing business.
Yes. With that being said,
you know, so this kid getting killed, this is part of the business. And we got to step up. We got to talk about, you know, if you can't solve this problem with this young man and this officer by just saying, oh, well, you know, is this a good shooting? You know, it draws us down to the victims being the problem, when in fact the problem is there's money being made on this situation. Lots of money.
So let me ask you a question before I read the comments, Frank. You referenced that again. If you could give it to me in a minute or two, real quick, because I want to go on to other topics before we get out of here. What would be your first course of action to stop the money? Because you're saying the money, and I'm not disputing you by no means, but the bottom line is we're talking about this, and you're saying it's bigger than this. It's about money. So how do we stop the money? If you give it to me in a minute or two, real quick, because I want to go into something else.
I can give you one suggestion that police, answering the question how police can facilitate this, police need to join with the community and do a 1 million person march on Washington down to Biden and Congress, not like what happened on the 6th, of course, but march with law enforcement. The community of law enforcement and the community together is a strong group that together we can make a change. Because if the police are on the side of the citizenry, the gun manufacturers can't stand up to us. But they got to separate it. The police act like we're separated from the community, especially the Black community. But if law enforcement would step up and say, we're having a rally with all civilians in Washington, D.C. on July the 4th, and we would like all citizens to join us as law enforcement to go to Washington and demand that not just new gun laws, that you stop selling these guns to people in this country.
You know, I totally agree with you. I think that would be a great way to start
bring the community together.
I totally agree. I don't think it will ever happen because people think that it's either them or me. It's us against them. I don't know where a lot of people get that ideology from. I mean, I know, people put the seed, they plant the seed and it grows. But the thing is, I totally agree with you. If lawmakers, saw that the community and law enforcement that agreed that this was a problem and they marched together in unity to the lawmakers to change, that definitely would be a solution. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti, and we have Frank Ogard in the building, retired detective, private investigator. Kevin, the last video I want to show is about the car stop where the sheriff stopped the young the black man. Can you find that real quick in your email? It was an Instagram thing. A lot of people. Oh yes, we could talk about that wrongful arrest too. But that's one thing. We could talk about that wrongful arrest. I just want to read some of these comments real quick. Everybody, I appreciate you. Please, if you like us, subscribe to us. Lewis, one day I want to have you on the show. I want you on the show. Anybody, all of y'all, we always ask. Oh yes, this go back to that. Go back to that.
You got to pick one, right? You sent me so many.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, let's show this one. Let's show this one.
I haven't watched this one yet, so that's pretty good. We'll watch it.
And this is. I'll give a brief synopsis of this. This is about white privilege. I'm going to read your comments before we all let you go. But this is in lieu of where they're saying how an officer, somebody of white descent, gets longitude and latitude in lieu of a person of color. So go ahead, Kevin, play this.
The drama started when the young man's family became concerned about the state of his mental health and called police. He fled into the woods. That's when a deputy caught up with him and tried to calm him.
Are you scared?
No. Yeah. He tries to detain Nicholas Ferguson. Suddenly, it all goes horribly wrong.
You're still not in trouble, but obviously I can't trust you not to run anywhere. All right, so come on. I'm going to put you in handcuffs for now, okay?
Cops say Ferguson pulled a knife and stabbed the deputy in the neck.
He stabbed me, he's got a knife!
The young man takes off again.
Stop right now!
You can see the pistol in his hand, but he switched for a non-lethal taser.
Drop the knife!
Other deputies show up and handcuff Ferguson.
I got stabbed in the neck.
Then they stem the blood with a special gauze known as quick clot.
He spent the night in the hospital, but he got stitches and he's out. He's going to make a full recovery. Matter of fact, he's ready to go back to work.
Stop right now!
Comments, questions on that? I'm going to read some comments. I'm probably in reading some comments. Kevin, go as you look. I'm going to let Frank comment on that. And then, Kevin, I want you to comment, but I want you to get that video or the car stop where the sheriff pulled over the black man in the car. That other video, I guess we'll do next week with the interracial couple and the man got arrested throwing out his garbage. We'll do that next week because I don't want to go past a certain time. I want to first thank Frank Ogard for being with us. Appreciate all your insight. you're a plethora of information, and you definitely look at things and you make somebody think, and that's a thought provocative thing, which is awesome. I appreciate you for that. Always want to thank my man Kevin for being with me and doing what we do, trying to bring change. And I want to thank everybody that's tuning in and chiming in. Your input and your conversation is imperative to what Real Talk is all about. Nobody's right and nobody's wrong in Real Talk. This is just thought provocative situations that we will discuss with each other, where we're all trying to get a solution to the conflict that arises in this world today. I want to read some comments, Kevin, as you look for that thing. Vanetta, you had a good comment. Yes, okay, Lewis. Looks like the guy that great points. Vanetta said that's a real. Jay as cops trained. No, okay. Vanetta says system. Vanetta says system problems that we are all paid to suffer. Yes. I know, Vanetta, you said you were from Ohio. I missed that comment. I'm trying to see if I could find it real quick, but I might have to pass on it. I see you in the building, Gina. I hope I read your comment. Stephanie said this. Yeah, Kat. If we should be charged with a crime, exactly. Lewis looks like subject disarmed herself by surrendering. Jay, Vanetta, I love the intellect, the conversation all you are having with each other and commenting on each other's posts and comments. Vanetta said, I'm from Ohio, and this was sad because adults standing around watching. They are protesting another killing of a Black person by a cop. But that's not the point, in capital letters, at least in this case. I'm on the side of the cop because the girl in the pink would have been dead as well. Vanetta said this could be a situation that could have been going wrong for you before. Absolutely. Chad, what's up, my former narco brother? He said, why give orders to someone if you're not ready for the reaction? That's a crazy, real talk statement. Just ain't just barking them out to give them up. Cass said, in the girl's case, in your opinion, could he have used a taser? Could have. How good does the taser work? If the purpose is a martial artist, do you guys shoot them or try to arm combat them, Bill Foster? Jay, cops, as you can see, do not have want to go hand-to-hand combat with anybody. Martial artists, or just anybody that just has a skill set, or just anybody that's just not trying to go in. I don't think. I'll tell you a story next week about. I know of a martial artist or a boxer that the cops didn't cuff him, and he kind of put foot to their ass. They had to call like an 85 all pile up on a rabbit. A lot of cops don't want that hand-to-hand smoke. You know what I'm saying?
And how would you know the person's an expert?
Yeah.
Nobody walks around with an ID card.
Yeah. Vanetta said, yes, how does a 13-year-old child get a gun? Wrong on all fronts. John said, you want to stop kids from joining gangs? Give them jobs. Absolutely, John. That's my man, John Mills. That's my dude. Jay Burnett, see, there's so much money in the gun industry that they don't care about the health epidemic. That's what you were referring to, Frank. Absolutely. Vera Forster, no Ken, but I love the last name. It's called insurance. How many guns can you legally sell? The market is limited, but if my warehouse gets robbed, I collect insurance. Absolutely. Pinky, indeed, Frank, we know the root of the problem. We need to figure out how to fix it. Where do we start? Pinky, real talk, Frank. Every gun puts all of us in harm's way. Absolutely. Vanetta, wow. And he wasn't shot and killed. No. Chuck Richards is in the building. Shout out my man Chuck. Lewis, wow. The fact that he went less lethal is interesting. Definitely there was privilege. Absolutely. And that's the whole thing that I wanted to show, that because people say it all the time and sometimes people don't see it. Thank God that officer is all right. But the bottom line is he wanted to de-escalate and try to talk and converse with that individual that was having mental problems and not tactically putting himself in a position where he didn't know what was in his other hand. He was going to cuff him. So
that's
go ahead.
That's the difference. We've seen so many videos and incidents where when there is a white perpetrator involved, the tactic is totally different. I mean, I've worked with police officers when I was in anti-crime where, we're together always doing this by bus kinds of situations. And, getting kids who we find with drugs. And then we get a group of white kids in Harlem who, same situation. We pick them up, we take them to the house, and when we get them in the house, they separate me from the white guys I'm working with, separate me from this arrest. And I hear them talking to these kids like, "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be down here. I'm going to call your mother and tell her about it." And they eventually tell the kids to get the hell out of here and don't let them see him. This is what we have to deal with.
Yeah,
I've seen that. I've been. I used to live upstate and had a house up in a town upstate, and I happened to go into a restaurant where I'm in civilian clothes, sit down in the booth. I can hear the conversation of two uniformed officers that work upstate, and their conversation is, "Oh, I saw Johnny today. He had a gun again. I keep telling him he can't take the gun." And I'm listening to a conversation that just does not sound like how police deal with it when I'm dealing down in the city against people of color. So, what we just witnessed there is substantial. We could see it on a grander scale, January 6th at the Capitol. You can't figure out, why isn't somebody shooting somebody in this situation? What in the world? Every person of color officer that I spoke with could not believe that these officers were running away from this crowd.
absolutely.
At what point did we start running away from people? It was shocking, but it was white.
I told Kevin, I told you that myself.
So much in your face, you can't even believe. How could you even talk about this? Yeah. And all the training in my world, what I saw there was unbelievable. That they would be willing to get beat with stuff, and they're not going to shoot. They ain't going to shoot these white people. They are going to get beat, hit over the head with stuff, then run away. There's people spraying them with, and yet they're running away from these white people. It was unbelievable. And so go back to the boy running in the alley with the gun. Tossed the gun, he put his hands up. It's seconds. But I mean, if you could take pepper spray and bricks being thrown, and you don't shoot that, you don't shoot none of that stuff.
I'm sorry. Like, this is where I'm going to have to disagree with you. At protests all the time, cops are being thrown bricks at them. I started sending Bill some text this week of some of the things going on in some of the protests around the country. There are cops having bricks thrown at them almost on a daily basis somewhere in the country at a protest. They're not shooting at them. They're not firing at them. I'm just going to disagree with you on that one.
I appreciate that, Kevin. But what we witnessed on the 6th of January was an insurrection, first of all. This is the capital of the United States. This ain't some town somewhere. And we have officers, whatever demonstration, I've never seen officers retreat like that. I mean,
I'm sorry. Then you got to watch some of the videos from the last year, right? The cops gave up a precinct in Portland. They surrendered the police precinct. They've surrendered blocks. They have a police precinct. The crowd took it over for days, owned a police precinct, and nobody got shot there. There are other incidents when it happens, and somebody did get, a protester at the Capitol did get shot and killed. The fact that we're all screaming that there should have been more, I have an issue with. I don't think there should have been more.
I don't, if I said that, maybe I said it out of a little tension. I don't think any shooting is necessary. I just looking at the behavior being substantially different from one group of people to another. I think it was the behavior of law enforcement to have such restraint while the capital of the United States was being torn asunder was something that I can't imagine. And I'll tell you what else. One of the officers was interviewed. I don't know if you may or may not have seen this interview. It was a person of color, an officer who said he was on the job long enough. At one point years ago, Reverend Farrakhan came to the Capitol with 3 or 4 of his people and was touring the Capitol. and they called out all kinds of armor and all kinds of units because they saw Farrakhan in Washington.
Frank, about part I'm with you on. The preparedness, the executive level of the Capitol Police, and we'll go into in a minute on who actually controls the Capitol Police, right? Because there's the Capitol Police whose job is to protect the Capitol, Congress, and then there's Washington D.C. Police. The Capitol Police do not protect the citizens of D.C. That's not their job. It's to protect them. They were not, like we've all been cops. When we go to anything, we're told what the uniform of the day is, right? You're wearing. We want you with hats and bats. We want you with helmets and sticks or not. The executives there made the decision to say no to that, right? Not the cops. The cops on the ground were the ones screwed in the middle.
Right.
Who controls that? Well, like in New York City, so it's the police commissioner and the mayor. For the Capitol Police, it's the head of the Capitol Police, and it is the Speaker of the House controls that, makes those determinations. Who made it that day? There's an argument right now whether it was the head of the police or the Pelosi's office made that call, and the investigation and reports will come out. But in those two offices is where that decision was made, not to have the National Guard there, not to have the armor that they should have had to protect themselves, because the threat was there beforehand. And I'm also with you on the other part of that is the worst event I've ever seen, right? That is our Capitol. And there is no building that is more important than our Capitol, right? Like, so that, as much as I despised having a police precinct take it over, and I've had other city blocks take it over in the country, this is still worse. And that I'm with you on.
Yeah, everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. Kevin, did you find that video, that one last video I want to show?
No, you sent me one Instagram thing, and it's not that one. Not what you're talking about.
What did I say?
Like I said, I had a whole, kind of flew through things you had sent me. Yeah. You sent me this. You sent me, this. You sent me.
You told me to email you, so that's what I did.
And this is all from the email. But I just, as you guys were talking, I went through my email again. Yeah. I don't see any other, and there's this, one. This was the only Instagram one I have from you. Maybe you meant to send it to me.
Oh, maybe I didn't. Well, you know what? Let's go back to the video before we get out of here. We'll pick it up next week, Wednesday. But let's just talk about how LAPD arrested the African American man with and his white girlfriend. John said at the Capitol, you had the number 1 and number 2 people in line of the presidency under fire. Don't compare that to a protest in the streets, Kevin. It's totally different. Yeah. We can definitely discuss that. We'll definitely be back next week. Every Wednesday, we give you all that you can handle and more in 2 hours. We try to definitely condense it and converse with you. Like I said, again, I want to thank Frank Ogar for being with us. Before we get out of here, we're going to watch one more video, Frank. And definitely when you come back, Frank, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, and strictly the elephant. Because the bottom line is everything you said is totally correct. We need to find where the problem starts and why does it start there, and then how do we solve it? Because the bottom line is we can sit here and talk about this shooting, that shooting, but we can talk about we need to find out that we all know collars for dollars, like you said. The police is this is it's a business. I mean, think about it. Crack was running rampant in the 80s for Kevin and in the 90s for Kevin and I, and then all of a sudden opium came out, or whatever this new drug that came out, and all of a sudden it started affecting the suburbs and the white kids, and it was like, oh no, America has a drug problem. You didn't give a damn about that shit when it was in Harlem or the hood of all the 5 boroughs. You know what I'm saying?
Worse than that, marijuana is now legal. I mean, 100 years of locking people up. I hated to even be involved in that. I knew it shouldn't have been illegal when I was an officer. And, that you're crippling a community for no reason. And now, from one day to another, it goes from illegal to legal. Well, what about the lives that were destroyed all of these years?
And the funny thing is now, right now, marijuana, if you got a bunch of people hanging out in front of your building smoking weed, you can't, if you call the cops right now, the only thing the cops can do is tell you I can't do nothing. And then who does it look bad on? It looks bad on law enforcement. So, right now.
No, it doesn't look bad on law enforcement. Law enforcement should not have anything to do with drugs in the first place. That's a whole nother industry again that needs to police themselves. And like Norway or Amsterdam, other countries who recognize that drug problem is a social issue. It becomes this whole thing when you put law enforcement in, law enforcement is involved in so much stuff that we shouldn't be involved in. We shouldn't be policing an industry. We're allowing these, systems to use us to make money.
Well, like I said, we're going to pick that up, and we're going to invite you back to definitely deal with the elephant in the room. I just got a news flash. Woman executed by ex-girlfriend in Brooklyn. The Brooklyn mother was executed in broad daylight when a woman she used to date shot her in the head. Oh my God, always something. What's up, Mark, in the building? Kevin, let's play this last clip, and then we'll just discuss it real quick, but we'll definitely pick it up next week. I just want to show how LAPD effed up and how things can happen. Chuck said, Kevin, look at my first comment. That's the link you're looking for. Oh, okay. Kevin, you heard me?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to play this clip, but definitely that's what Chuck was talking about. Everybody look at this. Go ahead, play it, Kev. It doesn't have any sound.
It's no sound?
No.
No.
All right. Hang on. I got to reshare it then.
All right, cool.
Hang on. I
Susan,
apologize to that.
Hey, Susan, what's going on? Oh, my God. Yes, a travesty. All those folks locked up for drugs over all these years should get reparations of some kind. Absolutely. Shout out to Susan in the building,
Let me know when you're ready, Bill. I got it now. I got the volume, I believe.
All right. Hold on. Let me go back to it. You ready? All right, everybody, look at this video right here.
Man who was simply taking out the trash.
You hearing the audio?
Talked to Anton Austin and his girlfriend about the incident. He joins us now with more. Good morning, TJ.
Good morning, Stray. And add now to the lexicon of hashtags, taking out the trash while black. We're about to show you video of an incident that took place nearly 2 years ago, but we're only seeing it now as part of a racial profiling lawsuit against the LAPD. Many parts of this you will find disturbing and chilling to hear police admit as they're arresting this man that we don't know who we're looking for.
You're hearing the desperate screams of Anton Austin, a black man who was simply taking out his trash when two Los Angeles police officers approached to arrest him. Relax! This newly released body cam footage shows part of the disturbing incident from May of 2019. LAPD was responding to a domestic violence call.
Answer me for no reason, bro.
Kevin, what's up with your 2G?
Yeah, I can't even find my.
You got everybody sitting on the edge of their seats, Kevin.
What the heck just happened here?
Hey, Bill, can I ask you, have you ever been stopped by the police when you were in civilian clothes?
Absolutely. I've had somebody put a cuff on me and damn near tossed me almost. And I was like, I told you I was law enforcement. Why are you even touching me still? It was like they were so stuck in doing their routine. And
Exactly.
it was because I didn't open up my passenger door. And I told him, I said, why do I have to open up my passenger door? And she kept pulling on the door. And it was so funny. Thank God. Oh my God. You just, God is with you all the time, because what's so funny? That rah-rah mentality, you want to open up the door, you can't see. I can roll down the window for you, but I don't have to open up my door. You know what I'm saying? And I'm already having a discussion with one officer, and I have my hands out the window. And that's why he was able to cuff me. You know what I'm saying?
What about Kevin? Kevin, have you ever been stopped off duty?
Yeah, I've been stopped at gunpoint once off duty. And I've had
What was the call about? Why
Man
did
with a
they
gun?
stop? Because somebody actually saw your gun.
Somebody saw my partner's gun. Yeah. Yeah. Who was also white. It was you know, Bill, it was me and Eddie.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. You told me about that time y'all was hanging out or something.
That's happened. And I've had a car stop where I was held for 45 minutes while on the job. Let me pause this. For 45 minutes of being lectured on how irresponsible I was as of a human being.
What was that about?
Of hashtag
It was a
taking out the
Triborough
trash
and
while
Tunnel
black.
Authority.
We're about to show you video
So in
of an
the
incident
confines
that
of
took
New York
place
City.
nearly 2 years ago, but we're only seeing it now as part of a racial profiling lawsuit against the LAPD. Many parts of this you will find disturbing and chilling to hear police admit as they're arresting this man that we don't know who we're looking for.
You're hearing the desperate screams of Antone Austin, a black man who was simply taking out his trash when 2 Los Angeles police officers approached to arrest him. This newly released body cam footage shows part of the disturbing incident from May of 2019. The LAPD was responding to a domestic violence call. But police spot Austin from their vehicle, taking out his trash, and listen as they decide to approach him.
This dude, probably. Turn around because I told you to. Turn around. What are you doing, bro? I live here. We got a call. Okay, man. I don't know who I'm looking for yet. Come on, step. Turn around, man. What is your problem, dude?
You hear the officer admit he doesn't have a suspect description, but continues to arrest Austin, who continues to question the police. Tensions rise.
Shit, dude. What are you doing?
Austin yells for help. His girlfriend says she heard Austin's screams from the shower and rushed outside, trying to intervene, and ends up in the struggle and is disrobed in the process. Both were arrested. The couple is now suing the city of Los Angeles.
What was your reaction once you went back and actually saw it all play out and you got to actually hear the officers in the car before they got out?
In your mind, you want to say to yourself, oh, you know, the first thing, oh, this happened because I'm black. And then you won't want to be that petty. You don't want to be that small. You don't want to really believe that people's thinking is really that on that low of a scale, right? And then when you watch the footage and you hear the guy in the car, you know, like the girl in the 911 call told them to go to a restaurant that was 3 blocks away from my house.
Austin's neighbor, who made that initial 911 call about her ex-boyfriend, did not give a description of him to the dispatcher. That neighbor can be seen in the video telling the officers Austin was not the man she called about, but they continue with the arrest. The attorney for Austin calls this a clear case of racial profiling.
Police should not roll up and immediately think that this person is a criminal. And unfortunately, that's exactly what LAPD did.
Neither Los Angeles police nor city attorneys are commenting to ABC News. Austin fought for the release of this footage and says he's relieved the public now gets to see what he went through.
It's crazy that they can just convict you when they're supposed to be there to act mediator, there to serve, protect, find out what's going on. You know, that they in their minds are the judge and the jury, and they're going to convict you on the spot based off what you look like. It's really eye-opening. You know, it changed the way I look at a lot of things.
The city of Los Angeles did fight the release of that video, saying it would have a chilling effect on investigations, police investigations down the road, and it was against policy anyway. Now, Tone and his girlfriend have since moved from that neighborhood. They are seeking $3 million in damages, but they also simply want an apology, which they have not got. And guys, one other thing, their attorney says that the suspect the police were actually after was a white male.
Boy, you can see why they didn't want that tape out.
Yeah. And that's why body cams are so important for a lot of reasons, but that is a very specific one.
Exactly. Makes you shake your head.
So yeah, I mean,
fire him. I'm sorry. Like Bill, we've all gone to domestic violence things, and you've gone to calls, and you know at times you tell people you're not sure if the person's involved, you know, and you can tell somebody to sit down. That I got nothing to say but fire him.
Yeah, Frank, what's your take on that before we get out of here? I see you, Eddie Vieira. You're right. I remember the night we got pulled over. The cop was giving me a hard time. Absolutely, exactly, Sharon. Wow. Go ahead, Frank. Give me your take before we say goodnight.
Well, I think that's self-evident that all men are not created equal. you know, the fact that officers like this exist, for any period of time, you could only imagine how much havoc they've reaped to so many other people who didn't have any recourse or didn't pursue anything. So when you find this tape, you've got to guess substantially that there's a litany of a wake of other poor people that these guys have come in contact with, subsequently separating the community from law enforcement. And we need law enforcement. We like every community, needs to embrace law enforcement. How do you embrace an organization that treats you in this manner? Subsequently destroying a community. Because you don't have, like with the Floyd case, they're actually getting to the point where they're trying to call the police to get the police from, so you're in a madness, your state of madness.
Yes, yes. What's so funny? I just want to read some comments real quick. Susan said, oh my God, yes, a travesty. All those folks looked up for drugs. Yeah, exactly. I read that. Sharon said, wow. Susan said, oh no, he was supposed to be a white. Even if that was the guy, that was the way to, is that the way to approach a DV call? Absolutely. Cat, horrible. Frank, it was a pleasure having you. Usually before we leave, we ask all our guests to give us some positive affirmation. The floor is yours. But also, if anybody wants a private investigator, that's what Frank Ogard does right now. Frank, give them information how they can reach you, and then also let them know, you were referred to by Real Talk Chronicles. You might get $1 discount.
And most importantly, Allison Williams is a very important person in my life, and she's was kind enough to introduce me to a wonderful person like yourself and Kevin. It was really a pleasure to have
and
this.
You're welcome back. And you're welcome back, Frank. I always say anybody that comes on once is always welcome to come back. So I extend that offer too. We'll set that up too, and we'll definitely deal with those elephants in the room. But if anybody wants your services, please give them your services, and then give us some positive affirmation, and then I'll go to Kevin.
Well, you can contact me at area code 917-912-4773. I'm a licensed private investigator in the state of New York, and pretty much we'll look at any matter that I might be able to help you with. The positive thing that I could say is that I have a dear friend. His name is Dr. Elijah Bell. And he is in he knows about the stock market to a level that is very impressive. He has systems that he's created. And I'm mentioning him because what he's trying to do is facilitate to people who are unfamiliar with the market and how to help them understand that they can invest and make a future for themselves. So I think that is one of the most positive things I've run into in a long time. And he's doing this for free. He's not selling anything. I just wanted to mention his name because in the future, I certainly would like as many people to know of his existence. So whereas if they think that they want to be more educated about investing and how to create wealth, unrestricted.
So what we will do, Kevin, Frank, thank you for the shameless plug. We will have him on the show.
I tried not to make it sound like
we will have him on the show in the future, and you and him can come back, and he can talk about how wonderful you are, and you can talk about how wonderful he is.
Blowing smoke, brother, blowing smoke.
No, honestly, seriously, that is a topic that we definitely will discuss. So please, link us up together. We'll talk tomorrow, Frank, and link us up together because somebody that can give us insight and learning how to manage money or make money, it's something definitely. In all seriousness, I'm all for. I just had to play with you because we always got to end on a light note. But if you want to say anything else positive, please do. Without plugging somebody, just plug yourself, or just give us some good words of love and aspiration.
Well, I'm really enthused to see that there's a member of law enforcement who has a forum like this. I think it's very unique. And I think what my experience was tonight is really just a positive experience relative to sharing ideas, especially Kevin, you're a person with a different perspective that, adds to this kind of a conversation that's so necessary, that more of us should participate in. And I think there's a very positive element to what we're doing right here, what you guys are doing. So thank you for inviting me. I look forward to seeing you guys again. And of course, if there's anything I can do for you, you know what I do for a living. Even more than that, if there's anything you can think of that I may be able to help you with, I'd be more than happy to try and do that.
And I think please give your name and your number again. I don't know if they're asking for your information or they're asking for Elijah Bell's information. Thanks, Lewis, for putting clarity on that aspect, but we don't know. But if Crystal is asking for Frank's information, his name is Frank Ogard, and your number is
917-912-4773.
Absolutely. And he's a private investigator. Kat, thank you. Yes, this was the first time joining, and I really learned something from the officer's point of view. Thanks for the information. Kat, you're supposed to be with me more often. Colin, thank you. Great show. Everybody, thank you for chiming in. Kevin, give us some positive affirmation before we get out of here, like always.
Change happens in small steps, right? And it is our job as the population, and Frank, I liked what you said earlier, as Americans, to be a part of it. So do something positive in your life to make the change. Don't just sit there and we can scream about what's going wrong. We can complain about what's going wrong, and that's necessary to discuss. But spend a little time trying to do something to help with the change. And that's all I got for tonight.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night. God bless everyone.
Everybody, I'm Bill Foster. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the shares. Thank you for the YouTube people. I see you. Thank you for Frank Ogard. Thank you for Kevin Branzetti. Thank you for all of us. Listen, Monday coming up, we have Pastor Kevin Graves, a spiritual conversation with Pastor Kevin Graves. We might have a special guest chiming in too. I think y'all might like to listen in for that. As for me, what I want to say, please be the change that you want. I'm not asking you to put yourselves in harm's way, but I think you use that beautiful thing you got between your ears called a brain, and come up with solutions to the conflict. Let's all do this. We can do this together. Hopefully, we can try to do it together. It may not happen during our lifetime, but we can set the platform together. Listen, if you know of young people doing wrong, try some kind of mentoring, some kind of conversation with them. Let's try to help. Let's try to be some solutions, because we can all sit back in Monday cornerback. But what are you doing to help the world be in a better place? Thank you for all the videos, people out here that's taking videos. Yes, but the bottom line is, we need more than video people. Let's try to be changed. Let's really try to do something that can make this world a better place. I think I try. I hope you're trying. I think Real Talk is a form that we, like, Frank said, we try. We try to bring some knowledge to your world, and give you a platform where you can vent and have open dialogue. Anybody that wants to be on the show, I say it every week on everybody's show. If you want to be, inbox me. You're more than welcome to come on and have a good conversation about any topics that come up. We can bring up old issues. We can talk about new issues. We can talk about, like Frank said earlier, which is so imperative, the elephant in the room. We will discuss the elephant in the room. Maybe next week we might start off talking about, we see what the problems are. How do we change the problems? Because, we want to solve these problems because they're here. I appreciate you all. Please share this post, share this podcast with your friends. Let them know what we're doing every week. Thank you for all my ministers of information that send me countless articles and topics that help me bring good information to you. Everybody, I'm Bill Foster. That's Kevin Branzetti, and that's Frank Ogard. Thank you. This is Real Talk, and we'll see you next week, Monday. Peace. Take care.